Welcome back to your next episode with me, Louise.
And me, Amy.
So I want to talk to you about yoga, Amy, because I've been going 4 times a week now. And I know that you have been to some of the same yoga classes that I've been to, and just wondered what you thought about them, because you are a bit of a yoga buff and expert.
A white woman claiming to be a yoga expert. That's not problematic at all. In fact, I will say that.
You don't teach it, do you? But you did go on a retreat and everything, didn't you? Yeah. So, do you like those yoga classes, or you? I
think that this is going to sound really wanky, but once you are sort of on the mat, and to be fair, you're not poking around in the fridge, you're not looking at your phone, so you are there. And if you can just bring your attention to it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd say 90%, maybe 80% of the time that I've spent on a yoga mat, I'm kind of like, did I take the mince out of the freezer? Did she mean to say that when she said that? You do. It's like I run through the list of things I've got to do. But I've had a really good yoga teacher who's a local yoga teacher, and there is quite a lot of that thing of sort of the meditation that goes along with it, and taking little. And I know you have no truck with that, do you, Louise?
No, not with that.
She's got very short fucking views when it comes to anything
any kind of wankery. Yeah. I don't want to.
Well, listen,
I'm just there for the stretching.
Yeah, I think one thing is for sure, when you do one of those sort of twists or stretch, and you think, bloody hell, I didn't realise I had that rib there and that twist there. And sometimes the other thing I think when I'm on my yoga mat quite a lot is, if my gran, who is now 85, had done this, like just even being able to reach your sort of this is something that the Helen, my yoga teacher, says quite a lot about. Even just being able to put something on a high shelf, you lose that.
You lose it if you're not.
Yeah, you do. And
because I've noticed, obviously, I'm very new to it, and I find it really hard to do. And other people are like, oh, that's a lovely stretch. There's nothing lovely about it for me.
No.
It's like really bloody hard work. But that just highlights the fact that I really need to be doing it. Because otherwise, if I don't start doing it now, like you say...
There is that light bulb moment where you think, oh, hang on a minute, if I've not been doing this for the past 10 years, let's say, and I didn't do it for the next 10 years, I would completely just lose any kind of, any movement or mobility. And that's why, you do see old women kind of like... and old men as well, kind of like shriveled up, and I guess we spend so much time kind of dealing with kids on a little level, when they're toddlers, bending over, and then that squashes your organs and stuff like that. I think the trick is to sort of find and I know the yoga class that you're talking about, because I've been to it, and she's a different teacher to mine, but she's quite good, because I think she'd be quite a good fit for you, because she's just quite do this, do this. She's not talking about a blue sky with and the imagery and a flower opening up, because I think you'd be like, I'm out of here.
I know, and I do understand. Obviously, I'm a hypnobirthing teacher. I'm all about sort of that. Understanding the importance of being able to actively relax. But a lot of that, like. There's one of the teachers that does the Namaste, the Namaste hands at the end. And Paul said to me this morning, "Do you do the Namaste hands?
Does the light in you honour the light in that teacher?" And
I just go like that, mutter it, because I can't bring myself to say Namaste. It just feels like it just makes my butt clench, and I'm very awkward about it. Perhaps I'll get better, but but also last year, I worked with someone who used to send me. Namaste hands at the end of very aggressive texts.
Yes,
she used to send like a row of Namaste hands, butterflies, kissy faces, the face with the hearts for eyes, whilst being incredibly hateful. So
there's a sincerity problem that you have. You've been hurt, haven't you? You've been wounded and damaged, Louise. Yeah. But no, I think that. Like you say, if you can sort of just get a little bit of that flexibility and mobility, then you know, and also, you know, I went to India back in January.
I know.
Can you imagine?
I was thinking to myself today, well, that was like well over a year ago.
No,
surely.
it was the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
And to think that, you know, and God, you know, there've been times, and, you know, if we are staring down the barrel of another lockdown, who can say, if somebody's listening to this in a time capsule in the middle of a desert, as I always say, like, this is what's happening. I just think, oh God, you know, just to have a bit of time out from your life and just be able to sort of press pause on stuff. And
but I know, sort of when I was in my 40s, hearing women who were 50 talking about discovering yoga and realizing how good it was, you know, and I am now 51 and I'm saying it, you know, so it really,
I guess it is less punishing. I mean, because there's a large proportion of it where you're actually laying down. And that's my kind of that's my kind of yoga. But
I can feel that sort of, like, as I'm doing those stretches, as I say, I don't like them, but it's like, Christ, this is hard. But imagine if I didn't do it, what I'd be like in 10 years time. Well, my grandmother had I think it's called a widow's hump, you know.
Wow, the full curvature.
Oh my God, yeah. So I want to avoid that if I can. And anyway, and we'll talk to our guest about yoga, no doubt, because today we're tackling weight gain in midlife. I think I've mentioned on a previous podcast my midlife stroke COVID gunt before.
Why do I get this feeling that this podcast is just basically going to become like your appointment with an NHS weight loss expert?
So, you know, I have obviously tried to, I have asked questions that I think will be of interest to, you know, our audience, but on this occasion, I am pretty much our target audience in that I'm, you know, I'm 51. I've put on a load of weight around my middle. I don't like it. I want to know what I should do about it. But equally, I'm not prepared to go through punishing diets or, you know, so I'm really, you know, looking forward to being able to, you know, this is like the lament of midlife women globally. So we're going to address all of that today. And we're going to talk to Dr Sally Norton, who is a medical NHS consultant and weight loss expert.
And that's coming up in just a second. Hi, Sally. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Can we dive straight in then and ask, why do we put on weight in midlife, particularly, you know, around the middle region? I mean, can we just blame that on hormones and perimenopause?
Well, that's a big question. I get asked that so many times. And I think actually it's a perfect storm around the perimenopause because so many different things happen around that time. And I don't think you can blame any one particular thing. A lot of people try and blame things on the menopause and the hormones themselves. And yes, to some extent that's true. But actually, if you look at some studies, it shows that looking purely at the hormones doesn't actually really account for that much weight gain. Not in everyone anyway. But what does happen with those hormones is that the drop in estrogen can cause a change in fat distribution. So, you know, the classic female shape is the pear shape, isn't it? We carry our weight around our bums and hips. And men tend to be a bit more of an apple shape. But
I'm now. I'm an apple now. I'm 51. I've become an apple in the last 2 years.
I know, that's the thing. All that, you know, we change from those lovely pears to apples as you go through the perimenopause because the drop in estrogen causes a change in fat distribution and we start to have more fat around the middle. So I don't know if you noticed that your bum maybe is a little bit smaller and your legs are a little bit thinner, but you've got a bit more around the middle.
Do you know, Sally, we're in a real danger here of me making this podcast all about me, but I am.
This is your time. It's a safe space.
I'm like sort of a typical middle-aged woman. I'm 51, and for the last 2 years, so my fat has all gone around my middle. My bum is sort of flat and saggy now. I notice when I don't tend to look at it in the mirror, but I've started yoga recently, and they've got these hideous mirrors all around the studio.
Oh, no.
So yes, exactly what you're saying. My legs have stayed fine, you know, they're all right, but yeah, it's like round my middle. So exactly what you're describing is me.
Yes, I mean, and so many women say, "Oh, I'm just getting bloated. I've got all this belly fat. What do I do?" And your belts getting tighter and you can't fit into your jeans as easily, and
Yep.
and that makes people think that they're putting on weight where maybe not necessarily they're putting on that much weight as much as just getting it around the middle. You know, obviously some weight gain too for some women, but the problem with this fat around the middle is that it's more risky for our health, and that can be an issue as you get older. You have to start being a bit more aware of that, and that can be the case even if your weight's normal. I don't know if you've heard of the term toffees, people who are thin on the outside and fat on the inside.
Oh,
have you heard of that?
That's a good acronym, isn't it?
No, I haven't heard of that. So what do you mean by fat on the inside but you look thin on the outside? Fat organs or something? Or
Well, yes, that's exactly it. I mean, I'm a surgeon by trade, and
Yes.
I see it every day, unfortunately, that you can have more fat on the inside, which can either be the sort of the fairly free-floating fat that is actually present in everybody and is there to help protect. It's a bit of cushioning really on the inside, but also fat within the organs like the liver and the pancreas. That can actually cause health problems in itself. So we do have to be aware of that. Even if your weight's okay, if you're getting a bit wide around the middle, that can be an issue.
Oh, right. So
we do look at something called the waist to hip ratio, as well as just people's weight or their body mass index, which is that ratio of your weight and height. We
so
look
what's
at
that?
the waist to hip ratio. So the waist to hip ratio is basically a way of trying to quantify that weight around the middle. So if your waist is smaller than your hips, that's ideal. So in women,
I think mine's about the. I think they're on a par with each other. There's no.
Is there a
definition.
spirit level
There's just
between the two?
it's just like this sort of wedge from my armpits down to my. So that's not good, is it? It's not good. Go on.
Great. No, you want to keep that nice tucked in waist. That's the ideal. Really, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, men can get away with having their waist and their hips the same. Once their waist gets bigger than their hips, then they're in trouble.
Right.
But for women,
So you're talking.
we want to have a little bit of a pinched in waist.
It's sort of, you're speaking anatomically now, like when you say sort of men, is that so they're just obviously built differently?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, men are a lot more straight down. You don't see that sort of curvy hourglass figure in men very often.
No. Okay, all right. But men also seem to be, lots of the men I know who are my age, I'm not mentioning anyone in particular, maybe sort of, because he's right here in the room, are sort of, fit and, not overweight at all, but start to get that little bit of a tummy as well. So it's for men and women are putting on weight in their middles.
Yes. I mean, if you look at the data, really, most men and women are putting on a bit of weight decade by decade on the whole. So we do, it's the middle-age spread, isn't it? It just sort of creeps up on you for a number of different reasons. Yeah. So yes, both sexes, I'm afraid.
So presumably, cave people didn't get all fat and lumpy. So, I mean, lots of it must be down to our lifestyles, what we're eating. Is that right? It's not. So it's not all hormonal, because it must be.
Yeah, no, it's not all. I mean, the hormones, as I say, do a bit of cause a bit of change in distribution. I'm not sure that many cave women lived much beyond child
of course
rearing
not.
age.
No.
Okay, so we don't really know too much about their post-menopausal weight issues. Not much on that in the cave paintings and things, I don't think.
I have
food diary.
Yes. So as I was saying, I think it's a bit of a perfect storm. So that's the hormonal thing to, in brief, but so many other things happen, don't they, around this age? I think years of yo-yo dieting are catching up on us oh my goodness, how many women just lose weight on a diet and then regain all that they've lost and a bit more every time. It just goes, down and then up and up a bit more, and then down and then up and up a bit more, and you just accumulate all those extra pounds from countless diets. So that accumulates. The other thing that happens, partly caused by all of this yo-yo dieting, is that we lose more muscle as we get older.
Right.
The technical term for that's sarcopenia. So we lose about 8% of our muscle mass per decade after the age of 40, which is, you can see it, can't you, really, when you look at people as they get older. You lose that definition and muscle tone. And that's a problem because muscle tends to burn more energy than the equivalent fat does. So, it's more... it helps to keep our metabolic rate up if we've got more muscle, which is why actually there's that really, really irritating thing that when men and women try and lose weight together, the men seem to lose it more quickly. Right. You curse them because they just burn it off a bit more easily because they tend to have more muscle on board.
Right.
If you worked on that muscle though, like if you started sort of like weight training, so there's obviously that 8% is that's like a natural thing that happens regardless of your lifestyle, and if you're... I guess it's going to help if you are doing some sort of weight training, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, I suppose what happens is that it's partly that yo-yo dieting. Maybe your diet changes a bit. You're not moving around quite as much, and then the hormonal changes all contribute to that drop in muscle. So yes, the more you can hang on to it, the better. For a number of reasons. It's not just about weight control, but also, unfortunately, for women, we do run the risk of fractures and things as we get older, and the more we can build our muscle to strengthen and protect our joints and our balance and everything, the better. So lots of strength training, because so many women I think just try and sort of get on the treadmill and just keep on running to try and burn off the calories, but actually some good resistance strength training is really important too.
And it's not too late. So now let's say somebody who's 51 and she's never done any weight training in her life before. Is it something that I should? It's not. Is it too late? I mean,
no, never too late.
Oh, good.
No.
Okay, all right then.
They've even done studies with elderly people in care homes. So there you go. Right. You've got a few years yet.
And are you talking actually lifting weights or?
I guess. Well, it could be. Yeah, it could be anything really. I mean, you can use lifting weights if you can do that safely. You can get sort of advice from gyms if they're still open at the moment, and. But also you can use body weight, so you can do some squats while you're waiting for the kettle to boil, or some push-ups, press-ups on your knees, and that sort of thing. There's plenty of stuff online that you can
I mean, you don't need to go towing a truck down the A21, Louise. You could do it with a couple of tins of beans or something,
Exactly. Start small.
Okay, all right.
Could I ask about intermittent fasting, Sally? Because there's actually some evidence, isn't there, that it is a good way to eat, which kind of fills me with horror, like restricting food intake. What is the best way to do that? Like, when should we eat and fast, and how long in between? Or do you think it is completely unique and individual for each person?
Well, I think to some extent it is individual for each person, partly from their sort of metabolism and their body clock and everything, but also because of their lifestyle. I mean, everyone's lifestyle is different. So you have to, whatever you do when you're trying to manage your weight, it has to fit in with you. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to keep it up. So that's the first place to start. But then, yes, there is evidence that having fewer meals, even if you're having the same number of calories, can help with your metabolic type processing, your insulin resistance, the way that you manage sugars and your energy. So all of that that advice that we had in the past to just sort of eat little and often, keep snacking throughout the day to keep your blood sugar constant and level, was a load of rubbish, really. I think.
See, that's what I've been doing all my life.
So we have built up that snacking thing, and that old advice that from our grandmothers, don't eat between meals. Actually, there was a lot to be said for it. So I think the longer you can give yourself between eating, the better. It just lets your body recover and digest and everything else, and then you're hungry for your next meal, and that's the way that it should be.
Okay. Do you know, it's funny, throughout lockdown, I after about 6 or 7 weeks, I was like, God, I can't remember the last time I actually felt hungry, because the whole thing of making my family's meals just became the routine of the day. So, the
highlight of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't been hungry since lockdown began, I don't think. I've just not even allowed myself to get pickish. I've just been grazing for, how long has it been now? 9 months or something?
Yes, the corona stone.
Well, there's that as well.
Very common, yes. It's all been too easy, I think.
So tying in with that intermittent fasting, because I want to go back and ask, but I've heard people, other experts talking about sort of tuning in, listening to your body telling you like what it wants to eat, when it wants to eat. We know that our bodies are amazing and they have their own, natural weight management system, presumably, in the way that they manage everything else.
Yes.
So how do we do that? And also, like, tying that in with intermittent fasting, for example, as well. I mean, should you not eat until the afternoon, or how do you... The thing is, here's the thing, it sounds a bit too woolly for me, you know, and at 4 o'clock every day, something, I mean, and I always just think, it's my body telling me that it wants a bit of cake with a cup of tea, but that can't be really what it wants. And, you know, is that just because I've trained myself into that sugar habit? It's the same with wine at 7 o'clock in the evening, you know, like that's not really my body saying to me, you need a piece of cake or you need a glass of wine, is it? So
I don't think so. I don't remember ever seeing that physiological pathway in medical school when we were learning these things.
But it does. But I understand that it makes sense that you should be able to intuitively know when to eat, how to eat, what to eat. But what's getting in the way of that? Like, you know, for lots of people, for me, basically.
Well, there's a number of things, aren't there? So basically, as you quite rightly say, it's just a bit of habit, and you know, you just get used to it, and it does seem rather nice. But yes, you should be able to listen to your body. But the trouble is, all of those signals have been slightly interfered with.
We've just messed about with them, haven't we?
Of course we have, yes, completely. So all those natural pathways that are very inbuilt, even considering things like how our gut bacteria talk to our brain, and all of these sorts of weird and wonderful things that we're only just starting to fully appreciate, all of those things are being messed with by the sorts of foods we eat. So if we have a really sugary diet, for example, then we're playing havoc with our insulin hormones and various other hormones that then dictate how hungry we feel later on, and cravings that we might get. The sugar can also affect the sort of balance of healthy bacteria in our gut, and then we think, well, let's just change to artificial sweeteners then, and actually they could be toxic to our gut bacteria as well, and yet we're having more and more of them. So all of these different things that we're doing, our lack of sleep, our stress levels, all of these things are interfering with those natural mechanisms, and so it's no wonder that we can't pick up the signals that our body's sending to us.
No. And it's just occurred to me, does it start when, you know, like when my children were babies, I used to feed them with a spoon, and I'd do anything to shovel as much as I could down them, whereas my older daughter now, with her children, it's all baby led, you know, so she just puts food in front of the baby, it picks up the food, eats it. Do you think we start, even right back then when they're babies, we're shoveling food into them, because they wouldn't eat if they weren't hungry, would they? So
well, exactly. I mean, it's very true. I mean, if you think about babies and small children, if you think about animals, they just do what they need to do. They don't have to worry about dieting or calorie counting. They just eat when they're hungry and don't eat when they're not. And yes, we lose track of that as we get older, don't we? So,
and I guess we're straying into, because my mind's now thinking about sort of like when you even hit sort of 11, 12, 13, 14, girls especially, control, psychological issues, and that thing of sort of, cake is bad, but broccoli is good, and giving food different. And I guess that messes up your... it's where the psychological meets the physical, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I mean, it's really sad, isn't it, that a lot of dieting behaviour starts in teenagers, and then you set up that vicious cycle that carries on for years and years and years. And it's terrible. It's really awful. I think some teens are now getting a bit more aware of health, more importantly than image, but there's obviously still such a lot of it around.
So much. And can I just pick you up on what you said about sleep earlier? Can you talk to us about sleep? Sleep's really important, isn't it, with weight management?
It's really important. And I think that so many of us think that we can get away on 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night because we're all so busy rushing around, and we're on screens late at night, and all of these things can interfere with our natural cycle. And having a reduced sleep does have a huge impact on how you feel the next day. You know, there are studies that show you might eat about 300 or so calories more the next day because you're tired, you're looking for instant energy, you want a quick fix from sugary, fatty foods. And also, interestingly, it plays havoc with your hormones. So hormones like your cortisol and growth hormone and various other hormones are completely out of sync if you've had bad night's sleep, and they also affect all those pathways that I've been talking about that would control your weight naturally.
Right. Which goes back to what you were saying earlier about like a perfect storm in midlife, because for lots of midlife women, it's really tricky to get a good night's sleep. And
partly because of the hormones. And see, this is where those menopausal changes do start to factor in again, because we do get worse quality sleep even if we're not aware of it when we're entering the perimenopause. It's not necessarily the hot flushes that you might be aware of, but you can also wake up for tiny periods of time throughout the night and get worse quality sleep, which is why I think many women wake up in the morning thinking that they've had a reasonable night's sleep, but actually they're exhausted. They feel exhausted. So
Oh, it's so fascinating, isn't it?
So prioritising sleep is because that's something I've just started doing in the last year, and it makes such a difference to my day-to-day life. I kind of I've got to get 8 hours sleep, and I back time from right, I need to be up at this time, I need to be asleep by this time, so I'm in bed reading my book for half an hour, because then I will doze off, and and I've got earbuds and eye masks and everything.
Perfect. That's fantastic. Very good.
I love that. It's such a priority, and so you've totally you've gone militant on it.
Militant about it. I get really jumpy. I turn my phone off at sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock. That's it. I don't look at it. I don't, So
wow, that's impressive.
Because I've realised that's what I need in order to get a good night's sleep, and I've just really noticed that having a good night's sleep makes just a huge difference, and it does make a difference to how hungry I am during the day, and so not just, but also mentally, I just feel better if I've had a good night's sleep. Of course.
And how easy is that? I mean, compared to sort of trying to deny yourself lots of lovely food, the trick is to just make it easier for yourself, so you're not fighting. So just going to sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy.
You're so right. I guess getting sleep, or it's got to be easier than that sort of calorie counting or portion control. Or we've spoken about it a bit about especially as women, you're brought up to view it's essential that you have to starve yourself or control what you eat. I mean, things like Weight Watchers, Swimming World, and stuff like that. They've obviously again, the corporate element comes into it. I guess they've built businesses on getting people to do that, but I guess for 17 years you've listened to thousands of people who've struggled with their weight. I mean, can you give us any little nuggets of wisdom about what you've learned? Do diets work?
Well, I don't think they do, because I've sat in clinic, as you say, for many, many years listening to people who've been on countless diets and they've lost 6 stone or more on shake diets or whatever it might be, and then regained all of that weight and more. And, these aren't people who are incapable. I've treated people who are CEOs of major companies and things who are very, very capable people.
They're not daft.
They're not. They can work hard at things and make successes of things, but they just couldn't make diets work, which was why I just started thinking, hold on a second, there's something very wrong here, and started looking more at why that might be. And I think that whole dieting mentality is just flawed. It doesn't work. And then I remember it sticking in my mind years ago, watching some documentary on television where I think it was one of the finance officers of one of the slimming clubs was saying that the reason they're so successful is because people keep coming back, and that just
of course
he was on film saying that, and I was just horrified. Hopefully things are a bit better now, but I think it's still many people go backwards and forwards, and actually I'm sad to say that I've had to treat people who are team leaders in slimming clubs. They've come to me for weight loss surgery in the past, so
wow. God.
That sort of underlined it for me.
Yes, really. God, absolutely, yeah. But what? So, just going back to, can we talk again about exercise? I know we talked about weightlifting for muscle mass, but what about if I again, let's just bring it back to me. I want to lose weight.
You're the case study here, Louise.
So what exercise should I be doing? So I've recently started doing yoga, and I realise that's not a weight loss thing, but I'm doing it, and I'm realising I should be doing it because I'm really stiff and I'm not very flexible at all, but presumably I need to be doing a lot of cardio as well.
Yes, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. what people think when they think about exercise and weight loss is that it's all about how many calories can I burn. I've got to run for however many minutes so that I can burn off this donut or whatever.
It's like breaking even, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. It's that sort of old-fashioned calories in, calories out maths, which doesn't quite work, unfortunately. But actually, you know, trying to do that is flawed, because you could just end up running forever, couldn't you? It would just, you know, you'll never burn off all that food that you want to eat. So actually you have to think about what you're actually achieving with exercise. So, for example, muscle building, as we've talked about. But yoga actually is very, very useful, because yoga helps relax you. It helps reduce your cortisol levels, one of those stress hormones, and actually cortisol can contribute to weight gain around the middle. So that's a useful sort of exercise to do, and the stretching obviously is useful. And then other exercises, so for example, that high intensity exercise has been shown to help with reducing insulin resistance and that sort of risk of diabetes and things like that. So that those short bursts intense exercise can also be helpful. So we have to look at lots of different types of exercise.
Yeah, so because I've been doing those HIIT workout half-hour things in various forms, so that's a good thing to do. And yoga. Absolutely. What about swimming? Swimming good? Or
yes. I mean, the trick is to find whatever you enjoy.
Whatever you enjoy, because then you'll
variety.
stick with it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of women, I find, well, there are two extremes often, aren't there? So there are some women who just try and exercise desperately to work off all these calories. And actually the studies have shown that can actually increase the stress on your body, which increases the cortisol. So it's possible to exercise too much.
Wow, really?
And make weight loss more difficult by that.
Right. Yeah, right, okay.
I'm just smiling because at the risk of making this about me, we're so narcissistic, Sally. I'm so sorry.
No, it doesn't matter.
No, I'm just thinking about
it's your podcast.
Yeah, it is our podcast. Aileen, we do this for us, so go, you go.
Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking as you're saying that. I mean, it's a little bit off topic, but my comedy character, I'm a comedian and I do a character, and she has been in Lycra since 4 a.m. for the past 9 years, and there is nothing wrong here. There's nothing to see here. She has a steely focus and determination not to unpack anything emotionally, but just keep running. And that's the whole premise. Wonderful. That's the premise of my act. So for you to say that, it's just hilarious, because like how far can you run? Just keep running.
That's wonderful.
I guess what we're talking about here then is sort of like a blend and a balance, isn't it? It's not about crash dieting. It's not about hitting the gym hard. It's more sort of lifestyle choices, isn't it? And I guess as women get older, we do have that kind of light bulb moment. We click into that. I guess we're happy to lean into that. And so you do an online course that you find lots of your clients are midlife women, and I guess they understand at this point in their evolution quick fixes don't work. Could you talk us through, I guess, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 real basic changes that we can all do that will help us burn the fat more efficiently?
Yes, no, certainly. Well, I think that weight loss is about so many different things, as I said. So yes, my course goes through all of these different areas, because it's actually just about making lots of small tweaks. We're all capable of doing this, but you have to do it by just small changes that bring all of these natural mechanisms back into play, really. And I think one of the easiest things to do is by restricting your eating window a bit, that time restricted eating, not really intermittent fasting as much. You don't have to go full on fasting, but just eat over a smaller duration of time. So, you don't have to leap out of bed and go straight for breakfast. You can actually just not have breakfast until mid-morning or so, and then try and eat earlier in the day. So don't have your main meal too late at night, because you're more likely to put on fat overnight if you eat too late. So
what would you say, 6 o'clock? Would you say the cut-off point is 6-7 o'clock in the evening?
Yes, I mean, you obviously have to fit in with life, don't you?
Yeah.
It depends on kids and partners and everybody else. But yes, try not to eat too late. And then, even if you stop everything at 8 and don't do that snacking thing in the evening, then you're doing yourself a lot of favours. And even just something as simple as that can make a big difference. Yeah. And you just let your body recover and digest, and you'll find that the weight will come off more easily like that. So it's just about making some small changes, and then the sleep is another one that I really do focus on, because that is very important. And another big one, I think, is trying hard to cut down on sugar and processed food. I think the more we can get back to basics and know what we're eating, so that our body can actually process stuff that it recognizes, that it's been developed to recognize, that way we're more likely to be able to get back in tune with those natural mechanisms.
Right. Yeah. Do you know, so the only one I'm doing right is the sleeping. That's the only one.
You eat quite healthy. You don't have loads of microwave meals and stuff, do you?
No, not at all.
So
I home cook everything, but in the evenings I like to sit down after my lovely, delicious home cooked meal.
Have a digestive.
Big old slab of dairy milk, I like. with a decaf Earl Grey and a good box
It's
set.
all about balance. I love how the Earl Grey offsets the galaxy.
Keeping it classy, yeah. So,
absolutely.
Okay, all right. So can I just fire some real quick questions? So I want to know, good fats, bad fats, low fat. Should we be thinking about low fat? Like, is olive oil good, butter's bad? Is that right?
Well, not necessarily, actually. I mean, olive oil definitely is a good fat, as far as we know, as long as it's good quality olive oil. It hasn't been sat on a shelf in bright sunlight for ages. So it's all about quality. And butter can be fine in moderation. I mean, I think that saturated fats have been vilified a lot, and there's less and less evidence now that they are a major issue. I think obviously we have to be sensible with them, but they're not the devils that we thought they were. And I'd much rather have a little bit of butter than some processed meal that's had all the fat stripped out of it and filled up with chemicals and sugar and everything else to make it taste okay.
Yeah.
So it's
okay.
Back to natural.
But definitely low sugar, but not replacing it with artificial sweeteners, but just training ourselves not to want sugar. Yeah.
Yes,
really.
I mean, ideally, yes. If we can, just it's something that we can cut back on and try and get rid of our sweet tooth, because sugar does just spike that reward center in our brain, and you can retrain your brain. There are studies that show that with using MRI scans that you can train your brain to actually love vegetables instead of sugary foods after about 3 months.
Instead of a cream egg, are you sure?
Well, yeah, so these studies
really?
say.
God, that's going to take a lot of effort. Yeah. But maybe sort of cutting back would be just really
absolutely
actually, and being a bit more mindful about. But again, I'm just talking about myself now, really. But just being a bit more mindful about food and thinking about it would help.
Treat your body with a bit of respect,
yeah.
really. If you put good stuff into it, then you're going to get good stuff out. And so, things like having chocolate. I love chocolate. I absolutely love it. But chocolate can be very good for you if you have a bit of darker, good quality chocolate. That's actually can be delicious.
Yeah, because at the risk of getting sued, that those soup that you mentioned a couple of brands before, the brands that we all know. I mean, that's not actually really chocolate, is it, Sally?
No,
that's just a load of shit in there, isn't there?
Much of it, yeah.
What is in there? Like
sugar, sugar, and more sugar.
I mean, but
it is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. Yeah,
it is nice.
I know.
But actually, you can have really good quality. But what's wrong with some strawberries dipped in dark chocolate? That's rather nice as well.
Yeah.
That sort of thing's quite. You can have nice food. You just have to be a little bit more imaginative, and that's the thing. I think that as women, in particular, rushing around looking after teens or elderly parents or jobs or whatever it is, we don't have enough time to actually think, so we just grab whatever's most convenient. And the problem is manufacturers, restaurants, shops, supermarket checkouts, garages where they're trying to push
just
chocolate
make it
at you
so
across,
easy to grab a double decker, don't they?
Exactly.
I've seen you on Instagram stories, Amy, stuffing a double decker down your face in the car.
Well, no,
in between school runs or something.
You see, Sally, this is my comedy content. I just love a bit of confectionery. I had a Caramac the other day, and even you could
I haven't had one of those for
I know, and it was so nostalgic. But I was like, Jesus, you could taste the granules in it. I'm also just thinking as we're talking, I guess, like if you don't have £7 to get a green and black's 90% chocolate. It's more expensive, isn't it, to go and it's just dead easy to go and get something cheap and cheerful, but it is bad for you. So I guess we need to reframe the way we sort of just to be a bit more selective,
quality not quantity. I mean, the amount of food we throw away, I get it that, I mean, it's easy when you walk into a supermarket, there's a buy one get one free on donuts or something, isn't there? There always is. And the food manufacturers and shops and everything need to take more responsibility. They've got to make it easier for us, but at the same time we are throwing a lot of food away, and if we just getting a bit informed and thinking about it a bit more. So another thing, so thinking about sort of fat loss around the middle, so 0 carbs, is it a no to bread and pasta, but are potatoes okay? Does it depend how they're cooked, or what do we do about carbs?
That's a good question.
Carbs is always a very loaded question. So I think personally that we're eating more carbs than we need to, because most of our carbs are in the form of processed, sugary, starchy carbs that break down very quickly to sugar, and that just feeds our sugar craving. Whereas if we remember actually that things like veg are carbs as well, we could eat a lot more of that sort of thing and fill ourselves up on healthier carbs. I think that, again, that's the key. Rather than having processed carbs, just have healthier ones, and you don't need as much of them as you're led to believe. You don't have to pile your plate high with rice and pasta. No. You just need a bit on the side to fill you up, and so I think, and particularly as you get older, I think the weight going on around the middle makes it more difficult to process carbs. Really, you can increase something called increased insulin resistance. So fewer carbs, I think, is good personally. Okay. But yes, you don't have to sort of cut right back to nothing unless
I guess that's not realistic, and you're only going to fail if you do that, aren't you? The more realistic thing is just to
less of
just
portion control. Portion control.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can put diabetes into remission by cutting carbs out. So that's that just shows you how we have driven this diabetes epidemic by eating too much of these sugary carbs. So yes, cutting right back on carbs can be very helpful for some people, but you do need to do it in a sensible and controlled way so that you end up with plenty of nutrients as well.
And the other thing was water. I don't suppose water helps with weight loss, does it? But do we need to be guzzling 2 litres a day?
Well, actually, it does help with weight loss.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay.
Yes. So there are studies that show that if you drink a good old glass of water about half an hour before eating, then it can make you feel a bit less hungry. It fills your stomach up a bit. And so you feel a bit more full, and drinking water with meals can help, So actually it can help weight loss, and I think probably making more of a habit of water would be good. Certainly replacing sugary fizzy drinks with water will make a massive difference. Yeah. But yes, I mean, 2 litres is not a rigid thing.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the best way to know whether you've had enough water is to look at your pee. Do a pee check. If it's a pale straw colour, you're doing it all right.
Yes, okay.
That's
all
easy.
Right.
The other thing that we probably often forget is the stress side of things, because stress does add to weight problems as well. I mean, stress means that you're more tired, you tend to eat more just to comfort yourself, that comfort eating, emotional eating.
I'm a terrible comfort eater.
I think a lot of people are. I mean, that's where the chocolate kicks in for sure. And then, alcohol as well. If you're stressed, it's easy to unwind, isn't it, with a glass of wine?
There's so much sugar in alcohol, isn't there?
Yeah, there
so
can
much.
be. Yeah, but also it knocks your willpower, and it makes you sleep worse as well, which I think...
And hangover hunger the next day. Amy doesn't drink anymore. She stopped drinking about.
Well, I've been 2 years.
Really?
2 years sober now.
So I'm impressed.
But, however, my chocolate eclair intake is diabolical. Yeah,
you've got to have some vices in life. Let's face it. Life would be very boring, wouldn't it? Otherwise.
But when I've had a load of wine the night before, I'm hungry the next day. Really hungry. Can't stop eating, and hungry for all the wrong things. I basically just want fat, carbs and sugar.
Of course, absolutely, And also I think a lot of people think that it helps you nod off to sleep.
No,
yes,
God.
it does, but it can then the sleep quality is worse.
Oh, I wake up at 4 o'clock in a panic. about things.
Catastrophizing.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you quickly about meat, Sally?
Yeah.
What's your sort of? You've obviously been inside lots of bodies, I was going to say, in a professional way. Like, what's your... I mean, I guess that's one thing that we were doing less of back in the day. I guess before the war and stuff, everyone would it was very rationed, wasn't it? What's your... Are you a vegetarian?
No, I'm not actually. I do like meat, but I eat much less of it than I used to. I mean, it's difficult. I've got a surgeon husband who's very much a carnivore, so it's very difficult. It's very difficult to avoid meat in our household. But yes, I mean, we do actually all eat less meat than we did. I like the taste of it, and it's very good nutrients as long as you have good quality meat. So again, it's back to what we were talking about before. Have small quantities but good quality,
right?
And if you're going to have meat, then just make sure it is good quality meat. You know where it comes from. It's not sort of pumped up with antibiotics and rubbish. You want good quality meat. And then if you're not having meat, you obviously then have to be careful that you're getting all the vitamins that you need from your vegetarian food. And the thing that I find quite difficult and frustrates me a lot is that there's this perception that being vegetarian is a lot healthier.
Oh yeah,
it can be to some degree, but there's plenty of rubbish vegetarian food around, mass-produced food that's sort of factory grown in big industrial fields with hardly any nutrients because it's just been packed into fields. Your food is only as good as how it's produced and grown, whether it's meat or vegetables or whatever it is. So
that's interesting. Yeah.
Can
I just ask, Sally, where can people find you? And you've got a website and on social media?
Website, Instagram, Facebook. It's all Dr Sally Norton.
Okay.
That's Dr Sally Norton.
Yeah.
And yes, I write sort of blogs and various social media posts, and then I've got my online course if people need a bit more support. Happy to answer any questions anytime.
Well,
people want to get in touch.
I think I found you on Twitter, and I just really liked because I've been thinking about weight loss and that sort of thing for a while, but didn't want to go down that diet. I just knew that wasn't the right, So
sure.
And you do post really interesting, informative stuff. So I'll put details, all your details in our show notes as well.
Fantastic. Yes, I'm afraid I've sort of got out of Twitter a little bit. I can't keep up with all of this.
Oh God, I know.
Well, God, talk about mental health. I mean, and stress and anxiety. I mean, you should only really have one Twitter portion a day.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe just 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, because any more than that can actually be bad for your health.
That's very true. Well, to be honest, the number of people who are there on their phones and iPads and everything late at night, damaging their body clock and their circadian rhythm and their melatonin and everything. So yes, I think social media's got a lot to answer for.
It absolutely has, yeah.
But equally it does, just to give the balance, if you like the BBC here, it also brings people we fall down rabbit holes and find people like you. So thank you so much, Sally, for talking to us today.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Produced by Louise Daniels. Visit louise-daniels.com.